Finally, a bit of good news for one Mr. Julian Assange. Welcome to the Soapbox. This news is just dropping, so I'm going to call this breaking news. I mean, I suppose that's what breaking news is. It's dropped within the last few hours. What's being called a big victory by Julian Assange's legal team. Essentially, first, my name is Jamarl Thomas. This is Progressive Soapbox. Getting ahead of me because this wasn't one of my original stories. It kind of just popped up. Julian Assange's legal team is calling this a big victory. Now, what they're calling a big victory boils down to the Swedish prosecutor in closed-door session in order to protect Assange, but also to protect the person who's the object of this, what they call in a rape case. The Swedish judge, or the prosecutor, wanted to have him detained in absentia, essentially calling him a flight risk. Now, his lawyers call this to some degree ludicrous. He's not a flight risk. He's in a prison in the UK. And not a flight risk. One of the big issues that I think keeps being talked about without necessarily, it adds a certain coloring to the case, but it kind of misses the point. Assange wasn't against talking to prosecutors. If you remember, Assange went into the embassy because he wanted to avoid extradition. His entire point was, I will come with you, just promise me that you won't extradite me to the United States, which Sweden would not do. In this particular case, the judge kind of agreed with Assange's team, saying he's not a flight risk. He is literally in prison, in Belmarsh prison, the Guantanamo Bay in the UK, for the next 50 weeks. He's not going anywhere. So the Swedish judge squashed this. Now, this was supposed to be a precursor in order to get Assange extradited to Sweden. So the press is reporting this as the kind of a roadblock to getting Assange extradited to Sweden. Now, the catch is that the extradition is being competed on two fronts between Sweden and the United States. And I've contended that both of them are basically the same thing. If you send him to Sweden, it's very likely Sweden will extradite him to the United States, considering Sweden would make promises or assurances that it wouldn't extradite him to the United States. And the entire time, he's been very clear that he is open to talking to anybody, just don't extradite me to the U.S. Well, in this case, you have a situation where the Swedish prosecutor is not getting what they wanted. And like I said, a big victory for the Assange team. Just to make sure I didn't miss anything in this, I'm reporting on this from multiple sources because they're giving slightly different viewpoints of the case. But basically, it's literally what I just said. According to Sweden on Monday, turned down a request from prosecutors to have WikiLeaks found that Julian Assange detained in absentia. The Uppsala District Court said that Assange was a suspect in the 2010 rape case. His current detention in British prison was sufficient. He's already in prison. This seems like an overkill for you to do this, and that's essentially what the judge said. The Australian lawyers, meanwhile, described the verdict as a big victory for his client. So here's the catch. Eva Marie Pearson said she intends to issue a European arrest warrant concerning surrender to Sweden if the court approves the request. Well, they didn't approve that request. But she is talking about getting another warrant issued so she can talk to him. But this was never in question, right? It was never a situation where they were talking to him. Let's see, right here. Speaking after the ruling, Eva Marie Pearson, Sweden's deputy director of public prosecution, said the rape investigation would continue and she would instead issue a European investigation order to question Assange, meaning this allows her to question Assange. But Assange was there for questioning in the first place. If you remember, Assange allowed himself to be questioned by the Swedish authorities. They said they closed the case at one point, and now they're reopening the case now that all of these guys have their hands out for him. But that said, at least for today, Assange has finally scored a victory, and that victory being a roadblock to getting him extradited to Sweden. The other monster, however, is still there with the charges of the United States. So, big victory, but we'll see. We'll keep an eye on the case. All right, guys. I'll see you in a few moments. I have a slate of shows for today. Oh, by the way, also, Patron Appreciation Show is going to be this evening. Mrs. Thomas should be finished what she's doing around 6 p.m., so let's set it for 6 p.m. this evening. And I think that's everything. I have a slate of shows for today, and I'll see you probably in the next 15 minutes. Thanks all.